Welcome to the Nurture Small Business Podcast. I'm your host, Denise Cagan, president of the DCA Virtual Business Support. At DCA, we believe in small businesses and the families they support. Learn more at dcavirtual.com.
Hey listeners, I need your help with something. Have you heard about reauthorization of the Small Business Administration? Well, we have a couple of really special things. First of all, we have a podcast coming to you in March that will be talking about what this particularly means. We'll have special guests from the Goldman Sachs 10,000 Small Business Voices, as well as someone from the Bipartisan Policy on Business. So join us then. But in the meantime, you can also take our survey, which is on our website, that talks about this initiative to reauthorize the Small Business Administration. Go to dcavirtual.com/collaborations. It's right there on the website. Now for today's guest. There are several phases of a business: the startup, the cruising, the build-up, then the exit. Now, some of those terms are my terms, not necessarily official terms. And some of these stages kind of overlap and fold over top of one another. Today's guest, Tyler Horsley, while running his existing company, Nuclear Networking, has funded, grown, consulted, marketed, and sold several other companies, including a federal court reporting firm, luxury retail product store, and many more. Welcome to the show, Tyler.
Thank you. Appreciate you having me on.
Absolutely. So interesting fact here is that I learned about your company way before you reached out to me to be on a podcast through a mutual connection, somebody that actually works for you that I knew in Charlotte. And you guys are on the other side of the country.
Small world indeed, right? Yeah, that's crazy.
It is. It's kind of incredible. You know, I kept looking at the name of the company. I was like, I know this company. I know. Wait.
Right.
So yeah. Very few degrees of separation in business. So just give me some backstory about your career. I see a lot of interesting things in your bio. So I'm just going to let you tell me in your words, some highlights.
Sure. Highlights. You got it. And it is a strange jump from where I am now, from where I started. So I actually started in federal law enforcement, worked for 2 different government agencies here in the US, and then did a contracting stint with a military contracting group. From there, life changed rapidly, and essentially, we could dive into it later if you'd like to, but essentially moved into performance marketing. So self-taught initially, and then spent years and years with people mentoring me who are much smarter than I was and still am. And grew Nuclear Networking. And basically we help businesses. My primary focus right now in life is helping other business owners grow their businesses.
It's interesting because a lot of people, when they get, at least my impression is that when a lot of people get into business, they're not thinking about the end in mind. And as speaking to a lot of consultants and business advisors, they always say that in order for you to create the path, you got to have your goal, which is the end point in mind.
Right.
So what is the biggest challenge when people jump into businesses and they're not thinking about what that path is?
I was one of those. So I can speak from experience, because I created this company out of a couple different mindsets, which I wonder how many people kind of share that experience. But one was a survival mindset. Like I needed to create revenue and doing something for myself. If you leave the circular normal job world, quote unquote, and you jump into entrepreneurship all in, money is certainly on your mind. And it's not a motivator of I need to have a huge house or anything like that, but it's I need to pay rent, So I mean, like that survival mentality was there, but more out of creativity. I fell in love with learning, and this space really fascinated me. And I thought, what a way to kind of be able to still give in a space where this service tangibly creates more revenue or more, sustainability for other people. And so I will tell you, halfway through, I'm learning. I read a book called Built to Sell, and I'm like, shoot, I did not build this to sell it. I should have thought about this beforehand. And so loving the M&A space, that's certainly something I would redo if I could. And you mentioned this in the intro, but I've been able to build and sell a couple other companies passively while running this one. And so once that clicked in my head of the recipe, if you will, of how to build a company to sell, and starting from the right way with the end in mind. It certainly takes a lot of pain out of it versus not planning. So those are the biggest learnings I've had there.
Okay. So there's a recipe.
Yeah, I think there is.
Can you share that with us?
Sure. So, well, I don't want to rip off the book.
Of course,
but,
of course.
Just, yeah. So I'd say just really key points that I've learned right out of the gate, even outside of marketing and more for founders. If you cannot replace yourself in your own business, it is not sellable. And that is the biggest piece. So what does that mean? I will also preface with no one typically will care as much about your business success as you do. Of course, right? It makes sense. They're, likely they're not equity owners. They're not this, that, the other. And no one has put as much into it as you have. But if you create a company where you can at least parse your job out, even maybe you are 3 positions and right now it's just you wearing 3 hats. That's the first thing I would think about. How do I not have to be involved in the day-to-day in order for this to operate? And in my personal experience, that might involve hiring people at more than you are making now. But if it allows you to be scalable, which is probably number 2 most important thing, is your business scalable? Can you repeat your process or your products in a bigger way? Or are you the only person with this knowledge? And once you've worked 40 to 80 hours a week, there's no way that this thing can grow. And so those types of indicators early, and it doesn't mean if you're in that position now, if you're in that position now, it doesn't mean stop everything you're doing, but it could mean it might be time to seek mentorship from others who have done it before you to try to allow them to challenge what you're doing and maybe look at it from a different perspective. So I don't know if that's an easy recipe like making cookies, but those are the 2 things that I'd really focus on.
Yeah, I mean, making it so that you replace yourself and then making it scalable. So let's break those down just a little bit more because I know there's way more in those. And you had said something to me in our pre-call about EOS and traction. So I have a feeling that the replacing yourself has a little bit to do with that. Could you share some details?
Yeah, absolutely. So I was fortunate enough to be able to go to an event where they had an implementer. So EOS, Entrepreneur's Operating System, some call it traction as well. It's a methodology. There's others as well, scaling up and more. But I went there and basically the person speaking opened up with just that. Are you stuck in your own business? Are you not able to get out? Do you have a problem with accountability? If you're not managing everything, it just falls apart. And I'm like, yes, my ears are perked. I'm listening. And so as I would come to find out later, EOS would be a crucial part of that path for me. I ended up hiring this speaker at the time, pretty expensive. I also learned that I picked one of the top 10 in the nation and there's a lot more implementers. So there's styling, right? Okay. So it's like, well, that's cool. But again, expensive. But what they helped me draw out in my mind and on a whiteboard with my whole team was, imagine first thing they do is they fire you from your own company, metaphorically, and you sit in a room and you just walk through logically how your business runs, what those processes look like. And ultimately what you're doing is creating seats. So you might have a visionary seat. This is the person captaining the ship. Where are we going? What's the grand ideas that we're going to achieve and partnerships and speaking and more? Then underneath that, you have an integrator. That's the person that keeps the visionary from dreamland and helps them into reality. These are the people who understand the person finance.
With their feet on the ground.
Totally. Yeah, exactly. But it's got to be a person that you trust. And yes, there should be healthy friction between visionary and integrator. Like, I want to go dominate the world. Integrator says, great, we need to make payroll next month. Let's start there, and then from there, just building out those additional seats. We have this type of department that does these things. So you build all this out in a perfect world. And then you go, who sits in those seats now? And what I found out is I'm in over half of the seats. That's it. That's crazy. I'm trying to perform 6 or 7 full-time jobs as one person. And even as something as simple as that, until you see it, you can't think in those terms because we're just go on to the next thing. And so now it becomes, let's start from the top. What's it going to take to hire this person, either finance or next steps? And then we build rocks and more to get there. But that was the big awakening for me. So that structure really helped me try to better understand how to replace myself and kind of started on that journey. I guess the other piece from scalability standpoint, industries that are difficult to scale versus industries that are less difficult to scale. So if you don't have any manufacturing issues, arguably you should be able to scale a product company and sell your product to the entire world if you can copy, paste, rinse, repeat. That's kind of what I think of in my head when I think of scalability. Businesses that are more difficult to scale might be, a personal injury attorney office, because those businesses solely rely on hours in a day available from humans that you have there. So your idea of growing, if you're in that space, is I need to bring on more attorneys in order
More
to continue to grow.
more accounts.
Nailed it. Yep. It's just exactly. So, and certainly you could increase your hourly rate, but eventually you're going to hit a cap. And so pertinent to our business, a lot of it actually had more to do with process and less with people, but I had to create processes that were bite-sized in segments. Think of like a factory. I don't know, this is the first thing that's coming to mind, but person closes deal, or we have a sales department, great sales department educates, helps, learns from the customer what their pain points are, does a diagnosis, comes out the other side with recommendations, the person onboards. We have people welcoming those people, getting them set up in billing, this, that, and the other. Then it moves to pod 2, where they onboard and they learn about the marketing and make sure that we're, measuring twice and cutting once. Then pod 3 and so on. And just conceptualizing your business in that mindset. Could I run 100 people a month through that process and not have it break? What about 1,000? And basically just visualizing these, no, that would break. We would need X, Y, and Z. Then you start thinking, what could I contract out versus having FTEs or full-time employees internally? Because there are a lot of people around the world that would love your business and they're reliable. And so that's been the journey. And it's always refining. It's kind of rebuilding the car as you're driving it. It's strange. But it's just because you learn, right? You learn along the way, and you're not going to build a multi-billion-dollar Amazon structure day one of your startup. Right. So, but having that in mind and always refining, even quarterly, I think is what really helps people gain success.
Yeah, I think that businesses and business owners really sometimes undervalue having written procedures and processes in place.
Yep.
And don't understand how that can impact A, how they're working right now, but B, the sellability of their company.
Nailed it. And I was one of those people. I don't know if you've expected this. I've learned these things, but no, I know how to do it. It's just all in my head. It's like, well, yeah, if you get hit by a bus tomorrow, the business stops even when I started training, just verbally training people, their styling preferences. So if anybody's ever seen the movie The Founder, it's about McDonald's initially. But one of the biggest issues with the McDonald's franchise before it was, you go to Kentucky, they'd be selling fried chicken at McDonald's. You go to Florida, they're selling this. People just kind of do their own versions of everything. That's not okay because people don't have a consistent experience with your company. If you go to Chipotle, you get exactly the same experience every single time. Same menu items, and so to your point, generating or creating SOPs, processes, and more not only creates, consistency and a better customer experience and makes it easier to train, but now a buyer can very clearly look at, oh, cool, this is how you get from A to Z, and this is how you do what you do. And now your company's sellable. So
absolutely. So talk to me. What are some of the more? We mentioned a couple: the federal court reporting firm and the luxury retail product store. Tell me about those or some other exciting ones that you've helped build up and and some of the challenges they might have faced.
Yep. So this, by the way, is what I am meant to do. So I knew that a little bit getting into marketing, and I'm like, I love growing other people's businesses, but empowering founders who may or may not have that experience or that opportunity otherwise, and growing and selling companies, that is much more exciting than just the average SEO or paid advertising experience that I have. Still important. But so the court reporting firm, one of the founders, I would keep everybody generic for this or anonymous, but the founder, she was actually doing court reporting for a living, making a salary, started kind of a mom and pop shop, if you will, and had some local contracts. And what we were able to do and kind of conceptualize, and this really, remember my background, federal law enforcement initially, I had federal clearance, move over to this space. It's not unfamiliar to me. the way that they do federal bids, RFQs, that's what they call them. Basically, we repositioned that company for federal contracts, bid and won 30 plus federal contracts in 30 plus different states. And we had to somehow hire 300 plus contractors in a matter of 2 months.
Oh my.
Yeah. And it's not just, hey, you're a great fit, welcome aboard. They have to go through clearance and background.
Mm-hmm.
They have to actually be cleared as a contractor level.
That can sometimes take like 30 days by itself.
It can. And so I think the biggest benefit, and there's certainly enough hardships I can talk about too, but the biggest benefit there was my business partner and I at the time, he had a background in electrical engineering and he was a coder. And my background, you already know my background now. So it's like, how do we look at this differently? And so we started looking at what other competitors were doing. And because of the sense of urgency, they're hiring recruiting firms. Now, recruiting firms are great. They got everything that they needed. But if you're a startup and then you start conceptualizing that there's a retainer and then you're paying 20% of the first year's, as a commission times 300, oh my, these people are dumping over $250,000 just to get this thing moving. And so what we very quickly realized is we created a software platform that basically allowed us to post jobs on Indeed, Glassdoor, LinkedIn, and 100 other platforms instantly. And so like thinking through the marketing mind, I was like, I'm going to advertise on job platforms, like paid ads using this platform. And we got more applicants than you could imagine. And then we automated through this questionnaire, basic criteria that you would naturally ask a human during an initial interview. So by the time they got to the end, we already knew they were qualified, they're ready to work, they could pass the background test, all these things. And then even the training video, I had the C-level record herself doing training. So we had like 110 people on these training courses and it was all automated. And so by the end of that time, not only did we do it, by the way, for under 20 grand and other people are spending $250,000. Yeah. We also optimized the time because this company, we had like 5 people. That's it. So it's like, I can't interview 300 people, so it worked really well. I still have that company today, Local Opportunities, that all of these things, like when you start solving business issues, all the founders listening, keep that in mind, because if you're actually solving a problem for yourself, maybe you should solve it for other people. Maybe that's a separate company entirely. And so that's one of the biggest learnings and biggest takeaways from that piece there. We basically adaptability to when cost came. We, of course, had unforeseen, pandemics and other things like that close to the tail end of selling that impacted us as well. But I'd say being able to look at your business from a different perspective. And if you're unable to, which is totally fine because you're very close to it, have other people from other industries or, I joined a group called EO, Entrepreneurs Organization. It's kind of like YPO or Vistage. It's global. You get a lot of different business owners' perspectives and let them, quote unquote, call your baby ugly. It's like, here's what you're doing wrong and here's what I do better. And take as much consultation as you can because you might be missing something simple because you're a little too close to it. So
yeah, that feedback loop is really important. So quick question, because that software really intrigues me. That's incredible. Sure. I've seen similar capabilities in applicant tracking systems.
Sure.
But did you take that and spin it off into a separate company? Because that doesn't look like it necessarily belongs with the court reporting.
I know. Yeah, not at all. I did.
Awesome. Okay.
And just to be clear too, it's not an applicant tracking system. It's not a recruiting. It is just an applicant marketing system, if that makes sense. So I can bury, business owners and here's all the people that want to work for you. We don't have the sophistication on the back end to like filter all those resumes by X and Y, which is why, it's dirt cheap. It's a couple $100 for our users, but spun it off into a separate thing and almost thought about, should we sell this to the competitors? Nah.
Okay. So tell us what that is, and we'll put it in the show notes because I know hiring is definitely at the top of almost all small business owners' minds.
Sure. Yeah. So the company itself, and we actually white label it through Nuclear right now. So I'd say if anybody's interested in that,
just to reach out to Nuclear.
Yeah. Hello at Nuclear Networking. It'll go straight to me. But the company's called Local Opportunities. So,
perfect. Yeah. That's incredible. So tell me a little bit about your process when you jump in and, somebody reaches out to you to grow their business and then sell it. Tell me what you do.
what I used to do versus what I do now is very different. So I want to preface that just for listeners who are running their own companies, natural evolution and learning should be a normal part of your business growth. Just because it works today doesn't mean it's going to work tomorrow, et cetera. So,
we're going through that right now.
yeah. And to preface, what we used to do was, and this is pretty common in this space, and people just get pummeled with SEO and SEM companies and digital marketing, and everybody does it. And so, hey, here's a free report on your website. Mm-hmm. And here's meta tags, title description errors, JavaScript parsing opportunities. And right there, everyone just, you lose them, because it's like you're speaking nerd talk. I don't understand anything you're saying. I have a real tangible business need. And now it starts looking like fear marketing. You need all this stuff you don't understand. And there's this black box. And it's just strange, right? Because it's really hard to set expectations of what to expect on the back end if they don't expect they don't even know what they're buying on the front end. So where we are now, before we even work with people, we run them through a free discovery. It's just like this conversation. It's zero pressure. What are you trying to achieve? How are you positioning yourself in the market? Looking through their site on those calls. Have you ever thought about A, B, and C? You have no call to action here. Contact us. Everyone has a contact us button. If I lined you up with 15 of your competitors and you had less than 20 seconds to impress an audience ready to buy, what would you say to them? Here's what common people say. We've been in business for 20 years. We have a rating on the Better Business Bureau. We're family owned. We really care. It's like, I hope you do. Like most people, when they go to businesses, they assume that people care. And by the way, those aren't bad things. Those are kind of cherry on top things, but it's not the main course. Main course could be, I guarantee that if you work with us, I will triple your business in 3 months or you don't pay.
Wow.
Whoa, that's different. That perks people's ears up because they've gone through working with other companies, even free consultation. And this is 50-50. It works for some, but for others, basically what that says to me is, hey, give me your time so I could sell you something. There's not a tangible, if it's schedule a free consultation here and get a free P&L review or a free this, that, or the other, or I'm going to show you, and this is what we do, what all your competitors are doing for free. So before you spend a dime, here's what they're doing in marketing. Here's what's working, what's not working, how much they're paying. And what that does, it actually sets a standard for, oh my gosh, all my competitors are paying like $100,000 a month and I'm a startup. I can't do that. But it also sets a bar of reality of, I can't conquer the world tomorrow for $200. So I just think education, that's what we lead with now, whether people work with us or not. What goes around comes around. I know it's cliche, but if I can create a better experience for somebody looking for marketing, it stops the cycle of broken heart syndrome. I hired these people and they ripped me off. I hired these people and it didn't work. By the time I meet them, they don't trust me already. So just trying to reset the standard of what good should look like in this industry. And most of that's just through offering free education. Help people, whether they're paying you or not, and it'll come back. So,
what you just said, I hear that on almost every single call that I have. It's like, we hired a VA. They didn't do what they said they were doing. Yeah. In some case, a recent one was like, yeah, I've had somebody offshore. They're inexpensive, but you get what you pay for. There's a gap with, education and language. It's, I've had people literally come to me and just like, I've had so many bad experiences that's what I expect. So it's like, so why are you talking to me?
I know, right? It's because they intrinsically know they need the help, but it is a weird spot for you and I. You get this. It's like, man, I would love to create an awesome relationship. It's just weird to meet somebody that's already mad at you and you don't even know who they are. It's like, okay.
That's interesting.
Yeah. Sympathizing with their experience, though, to your point, is also a good way to build bridges. It's like, I know you've been through that pain. That's why we exist, because there's a lot of weird stuff out there. And yeah.
Awesome. So we've talked a little bit about how you grow companies, and you funded several as well. And you shared a pretty good story with me initially about a hot tub company.
Yeah. Because I'm an expert in hot tubs. No, I'm just kidding. No, it's brief overview of that. One of my favorite things to do. So with my knowledge set, it's much more interesting, not to sound selfish, but much more interesting to grow my own companies instead of growing everyone else's all the time. It's really nice, right? It's like the cobbler's kids. Like, I want to make myself a pair of shoes. Yeah, exactly. Right. So I was able to, I have just collectively a few people in my life that I've been friends with for a long time that are high performers. And that doesn't mean they're successful business owners yet, but it means that like they have really great values and they have great work ethic. By the way, the person we both mutually know, that's one of those people too, right? Like they just are good, salt of the earth people. They'll do anything for anyone. They'll never stop. So one of my friends here, I do have their permission to share this, but I'll keep the name anonymous. But they were working in this industry for quite some time. They're working their butt off, right? And you know this, you start hanging out with friends like, how's your job? How's it going? Eventually you kind of talk about money and more. And we all started out playing in a band together, by the way. And then of course we go off and do our own things in life. And they're like, Tyler, what are you doing? Because apparently like you're, building and selling businesses, this, that, and the other. And I start looking back and I'm like, well, you really know your trade really well, hot tubs. Have you ever thought about starting your own store? Oh no, I couldn't do that. And by the way, this is not this person's response, but it's like, you need a lot of credit to buy $80,000 worth of floor model hot tubs, plus sign a 3 to 5 year lease in a commercial It takes money and it takes credit. And
a little
not
bit of
everybody,
courage.
and oh my gosh, right? Like literally you put your whole life on the line. Mm-hmm. And so I was like, well, I don't know anything about hot tubs, but I know that I can build out websites, rank them first on Google, and drown you in business. And I feel like business sales fixes a lot. Money helps. And I trust you and I trust your work ethic. And outside of trust and money, good paper makes good friends. We had a formal operating agreement, had an attorney write all this up. Terms are really important. This model that I really love doing is if I can work with you and I can help you make millions of dollars in 2 years and then help you buy me out so you have this for the rest of your life as a legacy family business, is that interesting to you? The answer here is yes. Funded this thing, fairly sizable check as you'd imagine, built this thing up, and in less than 3 months of building the website, because I'm not, you've got to know this too, but every business obviously operates with a specific profit margin. I'm limited at growing people's businesses based on their budget. Mm-hmm. Could I make your company first in the nation and you're bigger than Walmart tomorrow? There's actually a possibility of that. Is it going to be cheap? Not at all. It's going to be like hundreds of millions of dollars a month if you're trying to, so business owners come in with a set budget and that's kind of they're almost like, this is as fast as you can grow with the budget that you gave me. But when it's my company, like there is no restriction. I get it at Costco pricing, right? So grew it, got it ranking in less than 3 months, which was a lot of work on the SEO front. Business started pouring in. We had a successful 2 years of continued growth. And by the way, this person had never run a business. He learned very quickly. I digitized the company, put order forms through on an iPad versus paper, just small stuff here and there, showed him some of the marketing tricks for attribution and reporting. And fast forward 2 years later, facilitated an SBA owner buyout. I helped him grow that. Certainly a lot of hard times. I don't want to mean that, like a lot of tough stuff happened globally. Right. But yeah, made that happen, did the loan and basically bought me out. And he's on his second store now. He's opened up a second store and I'm super proud of him. So
nice. And how many businesses have you done this with?
Just in general, helped grow and or been a part of from an equity level or a warrants perspective, like options.
Yes.
Probably like 14.
Okay. So you're a mini Shark Tank.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I love it. The hardest part though is when you start getting circulated in family and friends, everybody's got an idea. Hey man, I've got this business idea. Here's how I bet business ideas. Keyword competition, search volume, blah, blah, blah. Fast forward. This won't work at all. I'm sorry. And that's the part that isn't good. But you know what? If I can save somebody from taking out a second mortgage on their home, when data shows me it's not going to work, you could still do it. Grit goes a long way, but all the odds are against you. That's good information to know before you put your whole family on the line, or your whole savings. So
yeah, definitely. And you answered that way before I was going to ask you. It's like, how do you evaluate these?
Yeah. I have all the tools. I mean, we live in marketing world and we have all the subscriptions and licenses and big data access. So yeah, it certainly helps.
Awesome. So Tyler, what should I have asked you that I didn't ask you?
I don't know if you want to cover, I guess, evaluation at all. Maybe that's a different show, but I could give you like literally less than a minute what to think about if you do want to sell your company.
Yes, absolutely.
So for those familiar with real estate, think of this in terms of real estate selling your home. Maybe you buy a home or build one, but more likely buy one that needs a little love, and it needs some paint, needs new carpet, this, that, and the other. So you'd come in and invest, and you might invest your time and money, just as you would in a business, making that home better or building it into something more beautiful. So in the real estate world, most people understand this. That's appreciation. It's like, cool, your house was worth X, now it's worth Y. Who dictates how much your home is worth? The market. And so that's a real generic term, but what they do is they pull comps. So they're going to look at your neighbors in your neighborhood. What are other homes in your neighborhood that are kind of like yours? How much are they selling for? And then what has the market done in the last couple of years? And they formulate some sort of a response with that. So businesses are the same way. I'll speak for mine in marketing. If it's a human capital driven business, meaning you need humans largely to do this, it's not a software company, right? It's not a product company or a food. It's humans providing the value. Those typically trade, 3 to 6x multiples on EBITDA. So I'll simplify all that. Just EBITDA, I would highly recommend looking it up. But just to keep it simple, it's called net profit for now.
Before income tax and depreciation.
Yeah, there you go. You got it. So it's basically, the way that I put it is, if somebody else were to buy your business, what's the true profit there? They don't need to pay your taxes. Maybe they have plenty of write-offs. They certainly don't need to pay rent in your building. They might own their own. They also don't need to buy all the snacks and the coffee for everybody. Maybe they have something better. Bare bones, if somebody were to really strip it down, how much could they possibly squeeze out of this business? That number, EBITDA, and then you get a multiplier based on comps. So the multiplier is a fancy term for if somebody says 3 to 6x multiples on EBITDA, just take it times 3. So if you're making $500K a year EBITDA and you're trading at 3x, and that's what other people are trading at, you're probably worth 1.5 million. And so it's cool. Now I have an idea of what my company might be worth. And most brokers, business brokers, they'll give you a free evaluation. They want your business. They'll kind of give you some ranges.
20% at least.
Nailed it. Yeah, in SMB world, they do. If you have a bigger company, it's a little bit more favorable.
Right.
But yeah, so and most will give you free education. But before you sell, or if you're thinking about selling, start at the beginning of this conversation. Processes. Can you be replaced? The last thing, if you have your house in order and you can go on vacation for a year and nobody notices you're gone, or somewhere close in there, you don't have to have that perfect before you sell by any means. The last thing you think about is growth. The more you can grow and the quicker, even if it's out of your own wallet, if you know you're selling, grow as quickly as you can the first 6 months before you put your company on market, because all of those numbers are going to be multiplied times 3 or times 6 to start doing the math in your head. We've been at 300, 400K the last couple of years. If I got this to 700 this year, what does that do? What does that look like times 3 or times 6? That gets to be a lot bigger. So when you go to sell your company, the likelihood that they'll still have you stay on, pretty high, even if you've replaced yourself. It's called an earn-out. But you can do that negotiation on the back end. But if you're doing a business deal with your friends or even other listeners, if you have a business partner and you're like, I want to get out of this company, or they want to get out of the company, or maybe that's somebody's future, they have a baby or something, some life event. If you've been in business for 2 years or more, you will almost always qualify for an SBA loan. SBA loans are awesome because they'll evaluate your company and the government will actually give your business partner the loan to buy you out. And those years that's a 10-year loan at really favorable terms. So it's usually cheaper for your business partner to buy you out than to continue splitting it with you moving forward. And in my case, I would have been taking home 150 to 200K just in disbursements alone at the hot tub store. But this person who bought me out, they're only paying $4,000 a month for the loan. That is so much cheaper. Now they get all this extra cash flow that they get to keep because they own 100% of the business. Pay the loan off whenever you want. It's a low interest loan. But now they use that money to start a second store. So
smart.
Those are just some learnings that I thought I'd share. Yeah.
Perfect. Now, how can our listeners get in touch with you after the show?
Tyler@nuclearnetworking.com.
Perfect.
That's it. Yeah. Happy to chat. You don't even need to buy anything. I like this space.
Tyler does like to talk. That's a good thing.
Yeah, there you go.
All right. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate the invite.
Thank you for joining me for today's Nurture Small Business podcast, where the focus is on business growth, technology, and and people strategies to help your business thrive. At DCA Virtual Business Support, our focus is making your business operations run smooth so you can focus on growth. Reach out to me at Denise@dcavirtual.com if you'd like to learn more.